Thank you for joining us today. We will be covering Cherokee Code Section 117-45, the Standards of Ethical Conduct. To start off today, we would like to ask, what does ethics mean to you? Ethics represents a commitment to a set of moral principles that guide our actions and decisions. It's about understanding the difference between right and wrong and taking responsibility for our choices. Ethics means acting with integrity, honesty, and fairness in all our interactions. It also means respecting others and being accountable for our behavior. Now that we've explored what ethics is, let's take a moment to watch a short video on it.
Ethics. The term ethics often describes the investigation and analysis of moral principles and dilemmas. Traditionally, philosophers and religious scholars have studied ethics. More recently, scholars from various disciplines have entered the field, creating new approaches to the study of ethics, such as behavioral ethics and applied ethics. The term ethics can also refer to rules or guidelines that establish what conduct is right and wrong for individuals and for groups. For example, codes of conduct express relevant ethical standards for many professions, such as medicine, law, journalism, and accounting. Some philosophers make a distinction between ethics and morals, but many people use the terms ethics and morals interchangeably when talking about personal beliefs, actions, or principles. For example, it's common to say, "My ethics prevent me from cheating." It's also common to use morals in this sentence instead. So, whether we use the term ethics to refer to our personal beliefs or rules of conduct, or the study of moral philosophy, ethics provides a framework for understanding and interpreting right and wrong in society.
In 2016, Cherokee Code Section 117-45 established the standards of ethical conduct for tribal officials. The standards of ethical conduct state that it is the policy of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians that high moral and ethical standards among the tribal officials are necessary in order to eliminate conflicts of interest in tribal offices, improve standards of tribal service, preserve the sacred public trust, and promote and strengthen the faith and confidence of enrolled members in their government. The Code of Ethics provides a mechanism whereby the tribe may hold such officials accountable for their conduct in performing the duties and responsibilities of their tribal office. Now that we have established the purpose of the standards of ethical conduct, it's important to clarify who these standards apply to. Let's take a look at who qualifies as a tribal official under the Code. Tribal officers as defined in Section 1 of the Charter and Governing Document. Members of the Cherokee School Board as defined in Cherokee Code Section 115-8. Those serving as members of an authority, board, committee, or commission appointed by Tribal Council, the Executive Committee, or Principal Chief, and who is subject to removal by the appointing authority. Those appointed by Tribal Council, the Executive Committee, or Principal Chief, and who is subject to removal by the appointing authority to carry out actions, provide guidance, or assistance. As we've discussed what ethics is and who the Code of Ethics applies to, it is essential to ensure transparency and accountability among our tribal officials. To facilitate this, you are required to submit an attestation and disclosure statement upon your election or appointment, and annually by October 15th of every year thereafter. This form not only helps us keep your contact information updated, but also serves as a record in case any potential conflicts of interest arise concerning you or your immediate family. As we explore the standards of ethical conduct more thoroughly, let's focus on Section 117-45.3, which outlines the Code of Ethics. These 18 standards outline ethical conduct for tribal officials. The first standard, 117-45.3a, states, "You shall not take any official action or participate in the selection, award, or administration of a contract or grant award, if a conflict of interest, real or apparent, shall be involved. When we discuss conflicts of interest, we are referring to situations where you or your immediate family has a personal or financial interest that could interfere with, or appear to interfere with, your fair and impartial decision-making. If you find yourself in such situation, you should recuse yourself on the record from the decision-making process. Let's take a moment to watch a brief video that explores the topic of conflicts of interest.
Conflict of interest. A conflict of interest arises when what is in a person's best interest is not in the best interest of another person or organization to which that individual owes loyalty. For example, an employee may simultaneously help himself but hurt his employer by taking a bribe to purchase inferior goods for his company's use. A conflict of interest can also exist when a person must answer to two different individuals or groups whose needs are at odds with each other. In this case, serving one individual or group will injure the other. In business and law, having a fiduciary responsibility to someone is known as having a duty of loyalty. For example, auditors owe a duty of loyalty to investors who rely upon the financial reports that the auditors certify. But auditors are hired and paid directly by the companies whose reports they review. The duty of loyalty an auditor owes to investors can be at odds with the auditor's need to keep the company, its client, happy, as well as with the company's desire to look like a safe investment. So, those of us who wish to be ethical people must consciously avoid situations where we benefit ourselves by being disloyal to others.
(117-45.3b). You shall not, directly or indirectly, solicit, accept, or provide gratuities, favors, or anything of monetary value from contractors, potential contractors, or subcontractors who are contracting to perform services or sell goods or property to the tribe or a tribal program. If you are offered a gift from a contractor, potential contractor, or subcontractor, we simply ask that you return the gift and notify them you cannot accept gifts. This standard also prohibits other people from accepting gifts from contractors on your behalf. 117-45.3c. You shall not directly or through a business entity in which you have a personal interest enter into any contract for services or goods with any tribal entity, enterprise, or program for the purpose of either receiving or providing services or goods. This prohibition also applies to transactions where an invoice is issued to the tribe for payment. This standard does not prevent you from applying to programs available to all tribal members. 117-45.3d. You shall treat service to the EBCI as a sacred public trust with fiduciary responsibility, which requires upholding and acting in accordance with laws and engaging in the proper governance of the EBCI in a manner which is placed above personal and private gain. 117-45.3e. You shall protect and conserve tribal resources and ensure the appropriate use of resources falling under the scope of your office. It's important to remember when the Code of Ethics talks about tribal resources, it is referring to EBCI programs, services, land, physical property, and financial assets. Also, any other documents made available to you in your official capacity. This may include communications and other records. 117-45.3f. You shall provide every enrolled member a time to be heard on a tribal issue that falls under the scope of your official duties. 117-16 sets the requirement for acknowledgement and the time limit for speaking within council chambers. This paragraph shall not supersede Cherokee Code Section 117-16. As we continue to explore the standards, it's crucial to emphasize the importance of integrity in your role. 117-45.3g states, you shall not use your authority, title, or influence to improperly advance personal or financial interests. 117-45.3h. You shall disclose instances where you believe there has been fraud, waste, abuse, corruption, or violations of this chapter to the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics. Now let's discuss the process for reporting potential violations. Fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption can be reported anonymously. The EBCI hotline is administered by a third-party vendor, and the context of the report is then submitted to the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics. As a tribal official, you are required to notify the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics of any situation that may constitute an ethical violation. You are not required to file a formal complaint to satisfy this requirement. If you wish to file a formal ethics complaint, then you must fill out the complaint form provided by our office. Later in this presentation, we will explore the process in greater detail regarding what happens when a formal complaint is submitted to our office. 117-45.3 I. You shall respect and honor the customs and traditions of the EBCI. A violation of this standard would require a review by an outside body, such as the Elders' Council, to accurately define what constitutes a custom or tradition. 117-45.3J. You shall abide by the laws of any sovereign jurisdiction in which you are present and disclose any misdemeanor or felony charges and or convictions that occur in any jurisdiction while you are in office. Now let's discuss the specific procedures you must follow if you are charged with a misdemeanor or felony. You must notify the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics within 24 hours of the charge. This initial report can be made by calling 828-359-7072 or 828-359-7074. You may leave a voice message with the information if necessary. After making your initial notification, you must submit all relevant documents outlining the details of the charge to our office within 5 business days. When you have a final disposition of your charge, you have 5 business days to submit relevant documentation. This includes any court documents detailing the outcome. 117-45.3K. You shall report to the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics, in accordance with the ethics rules of procedure, any gift, donation, or contribution received or provided. Now that we have covered the requirement to report any gift, donation, or contribution, let's discuss the frequency and important details of the reporting process. The reporting of gifts, donations, or contributions is the standard you will deal with most frequently, as this report is required each quarter. Deadlines for reporting are set and will only be changed if tribal offices are closed, in which case the deadline will extend to the next business day. You will receive a reminder email 2 weeks prior to the deadline, which will include a quick reference sheet on what to report and what not to report. This information can also be found in your ethics rules of procedure. If you have any questions about a specific item, please reach out to our office. As a tribal official, you are prohibited from accepting lavish gifts. Any gift with a value of more than $250 will be considered lavish. If you are offered or receive such a gift, you must immediately contact the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics for guidance. In limited circumstances, this prohibition may be exempted by ethics staff. Lastly, it's important to note that you must file a gift report quarterly even if you did not receive or give any gifts, donations, or contributions. 117-45.3L. You shall not act individually, jointly, or through another, threaten, intimidate, or discipline any person as reprisal for any legitimate action taken by the person. 117-45.3M. You shall not offer, solicit, or accept, directly or indirectly, anything of value if the gift could reasonably be expected to influence the vote, official actions, or judgment of, or for, the official, or be reasonably considered a reward for action or inaction. 117-45.3N. You shall not withhold materials or information discussed in closed session unless such materials or information are deemed exempt from disclosure in accordance with Chapter 132 of the Cherokee Code. Chapter 132 has a list of 17 items that a public body may be exempt from disclosing. Some examples of these exemptions include trade secrets, information of a personal nature, and documents related to a proposed RFP, bid, or contractual arrangement. we recommend that you review Chapter 132 of the Cherokee Code. 117-45.3. You shall not take any official action or participate in a decision with respect to a matter if it will have a direct and predictable effect on your financial interest, personal interest, or present you with a conflict of interest for you or your immediate family. If you find yourself in such a situation, it is your responsibility to recuse yourself from participating in any discussions or votes on that matter. 117-45.3p. You may participate in activities that do not compromise the integrity or reputation of the EBCI or interfere with the performance of official duties. We receive a lot of questions about whether the Code of Ethics prevents you from participating in community clubs or free labor. You are allowed to participate in these types of activities, provided they do not compromise the integrity of the EBCI or interfere with your official duties. 117-45.3q. You shall maintain or enhance the honesty and integrity of your respective office and safeguard the reputation of the EBCI as a whole. Violations of this section could also violate other sections of the law. Any conduct at trainings and conferences that reflects poorly on the EBCI can also be considered a violation of this standard. 117-45.3r. You shall protect and enhance the environmental and cultural resources of the EBCI. Now that we have covered the standards of ethical conduct, let's discuss limited waiver requests. You may request a waiver from a specific section of 117-45 if you have an extenuating circumstance, as permitted by 117-45.5 of the Cherokee Code, which allows for a limited waiver of a specific provision of the standards of ethical conduct. For this request to be considered, it must be in written form, signed, and include the following details: name and appointed position. Specific section of 117-45 to be waived. Reason and justification for the waiver. Disclosure of personal or financial benefit. Any potential conflicts of interest, and any supporting documentation. Limited waivers will only be granted when you are able to demonstrate sufficient justification that the waiver's impact is in the best interest of the tribe. A limited waiver will not be considered for actions or circumstances that have already occurred. As we discussed, Section 117-45 establishes specific reporting requirements for tribal officials. The Office of Internal Audit and Ethics requires that you complete the attestation and disclosure statement annually and the gift, donation, and contribution form quarterly. Failing to submit these reports by the designated deadlines may result in a penalty, which we will cover on the next slide. The penalties for failing to report are: first, failure to report, written reprimand. Second, failure to report, $50 fine. Third, failure to report, $100 fine. Ongoing failure to report will be considered as an ethical violation. If you have a penalty imposed on you and you feel it is unfair or unjust, you may request a review of the matter by the Audit and Ethics Committee or Ethics Review Committee. Now that we've discussed the penalties for failing to report, let's shift our focus to the process involved when an ethics complaint is filed. Anyone can file an ethics complaint. Once an ethics complaint is submitted to our office, ethics staff will conduct an initial review to ensure that it is complete and within the jurisdiction of the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics. The Ethics Office can also self-initiate complaints. Ethics staff may submit a resolution recommending the initiation of a complaint to the Audit and Ethics Committee or Ethics Review Committee on its own motion without a signed complaint. The recommendation would include documented justification, and if approved, the complaint would then follow the normal complaint process. Once the complaint is determined to be complete and within jurisdiction, it is sent out to the respondent for a written response. Complaints that are sent out will always have the identifying information of the complainant redacted unless they request otherwise. The tribal official has 15 business days to submit a written response. The written response will be reviewed by the Ethics Review Committee to determine if an investigation is warranted. Once an investigation is approved, ethics staff will conduct the investigation and generate an investigation report with their findings. If it is determined there is a potential ethical violation, then the investigation is forwarded to the Audit and Ethics Committee, and they make the final determination of violation. If the Audit and Ethics Committee finds by clear and convincing evidence that a violation has been committed, they determine what actions should be taken. The committee may assess a monetary fine up to $5,000. The committee takes the severity of the violation and any previous ethics violations into account when determining the amount of the fine. In addition to a monetary fine, the Audit and Ethics Committee may recommend other corrective action to the appointing authority of the tribal official. Our final topic for today is advisory opinions. Advisory opinions are issued to clarify the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics interpretation of the Code of Ethics. If you require an interpretation of any of the standards outlined in 117-45, you may submit a written request. Please note that only tribal officials are permitted to make these requests. Members of the public cannot. An advisory opinion request must be in writing and may be submitted by mail, hand delivery, or emailed to oia@ebci-nsn.gov. The form must be filled out in its entirety with as much detail as possible. Once an advisory opinion is finalized and approved by the Audit and Ethics Committee, a copy of the response will be sent to the requesting party. A generalized version will be published on the Office of Internal Audit and Ethics website. This serves as a resource for tribal officials so that they may view past advisory opinions issued by our office. Thank you for watching the refresher training. To receive credit, you must pass the post-assessment. The link to the assessment has been emailed to you, or you can scan the QR code. Once you complete and pass the assessment, you will receive a certificate confirming your completion.